This is the project in the chapter where we talked about Java inheritance and polymorphism. And the name of the project is Language Families. Languages, just like people, often have families. You can even map language lineage a bit like a family tree. Java can help us build a model to track inherited traits across families. In this case, we'll focus on something that often varies between language families. The word order, where the subject, verb, and object would go in a sentence. So, for example, in English, you would use the subject, verb, object order. Okay, so she eats noodles. Okay, so you have the subject, the verb, and then the object. Okay, but in Japanese, you would use subject, object, verb. Okay, so she noodles eats. Okay, your language inheritance package has 3 Java files. Okay, language.java file for the language parent class, which serves as the template for all languages. Mayan.java file for Mayan as a child class of language modeled after the Mayan language family. Sino-Tibetan.java for Sino-Tibetan, a child class of language modeled after the Sino-Tibetan language family. Again, Codecademy, what are you thinking with these, tongue-twisting examples? Build out a Java package with these classes to model real-world language families. So we have the language, which is a parent class, and then we have the Mayan, which is a child class of language, and we have this Sino-Tibetan class, which is a child class of language as well. So this is the parent class, and these two are the child classes. Okay, let's start. Okay, task 1, a language by any other name. In language.java, create a language class with a main method and the following fields. Okay, so in here we say class, language. Okay, this is gonna have the main method, public static void main, and it's gonna also have string args. So this is our main method, and then this class is gonna have some fields. Protected name, protected num speakers, protected string. And by the way, we have to add, of course, the type, okay, of these variables, the type of the values that these variables are gonna store. And this, because its name is gonna be a string, okay, and a string again, a protected string again called word order, like so. Okay, so we've done task number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, name, num speakers, region, spoken, word order. In task number 2, it says above the main method, give language a constructor that sets each field to the values passed in. Okay, so let's so this is the main method. These are some fields. Okay, we're gonna create the constructor, and as we know, the constructor needs to have the same name as the class itself. But we also have task number 2 says to use the constructor to assign some values to our fields here. Okay, so it says we have to have a string. Okay, we have to have an int, we have to have another string, rs. Okay, we have to have another string WO, okay? So what I've done here, I'm passing it, I'm giving it some, I'm defining this constructor to take in some parameters, okay? So we know we need to take a parameter string of type string to be assigned to name, okay? So let's go like this, n from name, okay? Then we know we need to take an integer for ns, okay? For num speakers, okay? It needs to take a string region spoken, okay, rs, and then it needs to take another string word order, okay? And then what we can do next is to what do we do with these values that are going to be passed to our constructor whenever the constructor is going to be called? Well, we take these values and we assign them in turn to our given fields, okay? So in this case, this name, okay, equals to n. We say this num speakers equals to ns, okay? Then this region spoken, they need to be together like that, equals to rs, okay? And then finally the word order equals to wo. By the way, this is a very good example of using the this keyword, okay? Typically, it will get really confusing. Say, for example, had I put here name, okay? So what name are you talking about? Is it this one? Is it another one? What's going on here, okay? But in this case, it would be really easy by using the this keyword, this dot, yeah? It would be really easy knowing that, well, this one refers to the actual field, okay? And this one refers to this. But therefore, I'm showing you a different example where we can simply use different names of the parameters, okay, of the constructor, or of each any of or of any method really, okay, which is really clear, okay. We now can't make a confusion between this name and had this been called name. It would have confused us maybe a little bit. But in this case, it's very clear that this refers to this, okay, and this refers to this, okay. Had it been name, yeah, it would have been probably a bit more confusing, okay. Had this been name and then this be called num speakers and so on and so forth, okay. So if the names of the arguments here are exactly the same as these fields already declared, it might confuse us a little bit, even though this would be a good practice, okay. So to keep the names of the arguments, yeah, that we want the constructor to work with, to keep them the same, okay. This would be good practice as far as I know. But in this case, I'm simply showing you that there's a different way to do things, okay, which is definitely not gonna make you even more confused about what's what, which field belongs to which part, okay. Okay, so above the main method, give language a constructor that sets each field to the values passed in. Okay, we've done that as well. We can take this one. And then it says in task number 3, create a public method for language called getInfo. Okay, so we're gonna create methods and we're gonna say public. So the name of this method is gonna be getInfo. Okay, but we need to decide here, is gonna be void, is gonna return something, or what? Let's read on. We'll use this method to display all of its information using its field values. The method should not return anything. There you go, we have the answer to the question I just asked before. Is it gonna return anything? No, so therefore it's gonna be void, okay? So the method should not return anything, and we'll use this method to display all of its information using its field values, okay? So what would make sense would be for this one to create on the screen, I guess, a So system.out.println. So we want to print on the screen. What do we want to print on the screen? So we want to say name. So the name of the language plus is spoken by. Okay. We're gonna concatenate it with this text, okay, and we're gonna add some blank spaces, so a space before, because whenever we're gonna run this, we don't want everything to be jumbled up, okay. We still want to, so we don't want everything to be missing the white space, okay, which makes everything, you know, grammatically correct and more legible and all that, okay. We're gonna say plus num speakers, okay, plus, again, double quotes, people mainly in, plus, regions spoken. Okay, regions spoken. And then we have a full stop, so we have to concatenate it with a full stop there, okay? And then it says the language follows the word order. And we're gonna say word order here, okay? Okay, so for example, if we call Spanish.getInfo, we'd want to see something like this. Spanish is spoken by da-da-da, and the language follows this word order, okay? Let's try and save this, okay? And we've completed task number 3 as well. And then, and task number 4, it says let's test out the code so far, okay? In main, we have to instantiate a new language of our choice, okay? So we go to the main method, which is down here, and we say language. Of our choice, okay? Let's say, well, one of these, I guess. Let's see. So let's say we want to create an object called English. New language. And what did we say? So we need here, whenever we're creating a new object of type language, remember we have to pass it some values into the constructor, okay? So one of type string, which would be the name, okay? So would be English. The other one should be of type int, is spoken by, I don't know, this must be a very big number, so like 9 million. Even though this is gonna be bigger, but let's say, actually, let's say 900, okay, just to keep things simple. Regions spoken, so we need another half of Earth, okay. And the word order is, this needs to be again of type string. What did we say? It's gonna be subject, verb, object. So she eats an apple, okay, for example. And then we have to, if we have a look here, then we have to call the getInfo on the language variable. So we call this one English dot getInfo. Okay, and we see, let's see if something is gonna happen here on the screen. Well, of course, we're presented with a command, with a command line. So therefore we have to say Java C language.java. And now we have to say Java language. Okay, there you go. English is spoken by 900 people. half of the language follows the word order, subject, verb, whatever. But there's not plenty of time. Okay, there's not plenty of time. There's not plenty of space here. So English is spoken by 900 people, mainly in half of the earth. The language word order is subject, verb, object. Okay. Of course, that doesn't make too much sense and is not necessarily true. Well, clearly it's not true information, but it doesn't matter. It proves the point that we could create an object of type language. We could call this method on our object that we've just created. Okay, now we've completed that. Task 4, let's go to task 5. It says, nice work, let's model a language family. Tab over to Mayan.java, create an empty Mayan class that inherits from language. So we go here, we say class Mayan, extends language. Okay. We've done this one now, and it says Mayan languages share several traits in common, including regions spoken Central America, word order, verb, object, subject. Tweak the Mayan constructor so that it isn't necessary to pass these fields when instantiating a new Mayan language object. This is gonna be interesting. Okay, so let's see. We say we have to create a constructor for this class as well. Okay, so Mayan languages have several traits in common, including regions spoken Central America, okay, and word order, verb, object, subject. Tweak the Mayan constructor so that it isn't necessary to pass these fields when instantiating a new Mayan language object. Bear in mind that each language will still require its own name and num speakers. Okay. Yeah, if we have a look at the maybe the hint that our code is already, our lecture is already giving us here. So in this constructor, we know that because it extends the language, is automatically gonna, whenever this constructor runs, is already gonna run this constructor as well. So this constructor was defined to take 4 arguments, okay? So a string, an int, a string, and another string. So a name, a number of speakers, a string region spoken, and a string word order. Okay. So what we can do here is we can say, well, let's do this super, okay, like this. And we know that this one has to have 4 of them, okay. Has to have 4 arguments. Okay, I'm just putting these as placeholders, okay? Or maybe like this, just like that, okay? That is how the constructor of the parent class of Mayan was declared as, okay? So taking 1, 2, 3, 4 arguments, okay? Now, if it says that the regions spoken are already, so we know them, okay? We know that wherever it is asking for the regions spoken, which would be the 3rd one, okay, in here, we have to add Central America. Okay, so the 3rd one. And then word order is the 4th one, okay? So then in the 4th placeholder here, we have to put this, okay? But what about the others? Well, the others, we can ask them whenever we're instantiating an object of type Mayan, yeah? We can force the constructor to ask whoever's creating an object of this class, we can force them to provide us with a language name and the num speakers, okay, so the number of speakers that are speaking that language, okay. So we can say string, let's say name, and then int speakers, okay, and then this one we pass it here, and then this one we pass it here, okay. Okay, we've completed task 6. If we have a look at task number 7, it says Mayan languages have an interesting grammatical feature, ergativity. Override the getInfo method for the Mayan, so that if we call getInfo on Mayan language, like whatever, we'd get the following info, okay? So now what we need to do is we have to override, okay? And what do we override? Well, we override this, the getInfo, okay, method. And we go there and it says this language is spoken by mainly in Central America. The language follows the order that, and then we also have to add fun fact, or maybe we can print it on a different line, system.out.println, even though it might require us to add it here, but we can do that, there's no problem. Okay, let's see this. Time to test out the tweaks you made to the Mayan class. Tab back over to the language.java. Okay, so we're gonna go here. In the main method, we have to instantiate a new Mayan language of your choice. Whatever, I'm not even Mayan lang, okay, equals new Mayan. Okay. And here we have to give it Mayan lang. And what else is this one, the constructor asking us? Number of speakers, let's put 100, okay, and then 100. And then on this object we have to call the getInfo, okay, and we're gonna save, we're gonna clear, okay, and we say again Java C language dot Java, okay, language, and then we're gonna say Java language. Okay, so there you go. This was the English, okay, from here, and then this is the Mayan from here, okay, so from these things. Okay, heading east, okay, so task number 9, it says the Tibetan family has the second highest number of native speakers of any language family. Tab over to the Sino-Tibetan.java file and build out an empty class that inherits from language. Okay, so we're gonna do class extends language. Okay, so we've done this one. It says, like the Mayan language family, this other one, the Sino-Tibetan language, shares several traits in common. In this case, the region spoken is Asia, and the word order is subject, object, verb. Build a constructor for Sino-Tibetan. Okay. well, it needs 4, okay. It isn't necessary to pass these fields when instantiating a new Tibetan language object. Remember that each language will still require name and the number of speakers, okay? So then it means that we put name here. Whoopsie, what did I do? Name. And then we have to ask it for an int. Speakers. Okay. So the name and the speakers. So the name and the speakers were the first 2. Okay. Name speakers. And this one, regions spoken, is the third one. Asia. And we're taking the Asia value from here and then the word order from here. Okay. I'm gonna end it with a semicolon. Oh, it was already ended with a semicolon. Okay. Build a constructor so that it isn't necessary to pass in these fields when instantiating a new Sino-Tibetan language object. Remember, each language will still require its own name and number of speakers. Okay, so string language, the language name and the speakers, and then this one goes in the first field, the speakers goes in the second, and then Asia, and that's that. Okay. Let's close the hint. So it turns out that at some point a long time ago, the Chinese language, amongst a few others, switched the object and the verb order. So they now follow a subject-verb-object pattern. How can we handle this? One imperfect tactic is to check if the language's name field contains Chinese. Okay. There's a Java string method to check if a string contains a substring. In the constructor below where you call the super method, change the word order to subject verb object if this name contains Chinese. Okay. So here we have to check if this dot name let's have a look at this. So a public boolean contains char sequence S, returns true, and true if and only if the string contains the specified sequence of char values. Okay, I guess we can use this. And the S is the sequence to search for. So char sequence. So contains okay, so I'm gonna try and do this. If name contains Chinese, we found the contains this method, we found it here at this link. Okay. So we're gonna check if the name is Chinese, okay? Given that Chinese is gonna be spelled with capital C, which is true and, you know, just day-to-day life, but as you can see here, I haven't really taken any, well, actually here I have, because it's not referring to the actual variable, name is referring to the actual value that we pass here. In this case, English, and this should have been Mayan, let's say Mayan. Okay, because typically the names of the languages, you're gonna spell them with a capital letter, I guess. Okay, in the constructor below where you call the super, change the word order to... So if that is the case, then you say this... No, you say word order equals to a new value, okay? And we end it with a semicolon. Let's wrap it up. Okay, so test out the Sino-Tibetan class by instantiating two new Sino-Tibetan Tibetan languages objects of your choosing. One Chinese and the other one non-Chinese. Okay, then we call the getInfo info method on each language variable. Run your code in the terminal to see if the information gets printed. If nothing displays, try compiling your code. Okay. So in here, we have to, let's comment these out so then they won't display here on the screen, okay? So what we need to do is to instantiate two new objects of this class, okay? Mand Chinese. So let's call it like that, Mandarin Chinese, okay? And, well, sorry. We have to say new. This one. So new name of the class, we call it constructor, okay? And of course in here we'll have to pass it on, pass it in all the values that we need to pass in, which are gonna be the name and the speakers, okay? So the name of the language in our case will be this one, Mandarin Chinese, okay? And the let's say 5,000, okay? And then we have to call the getInfo method on it, okay? And see what we get. Let's say clear here. And then let's call another one. Let's create another one of the same type. Yeah. Called this one. But let's say with small b. And we say new. We call it constructor. We say Burmese. And we say it's 6,000. And then on this one, we call the getInfo method again. Okay, we're gonna save it. And let's say Java, C, language.java. Okay, so we have some sort of an error and it says illegal character. Well, of course, because we have a dot in there. Let's save it. Let's run again. Clear language. Again, illegal character, line 32. Oh, well, of course, it's the same thing. So I just copied from here, but it took the quotes that are not actually quite the right quotes for they were interpreted as something else anyways. Okay, so clear. We're gonna run Java C again. We're gonna run java.language, yeah. And let's see, Mandarin Chinese is spoken by 5,000 people in Asia. The language follows the subject, verb, object. Burmese is spoken by 6,000 people, mainly in. Okay, the language follows the word order subject, object, verb. Okay, so subject, object, verb, subject, verb, object. So as you can see, depending whether this whether the name contains Chinese, then if the name contains Chinese indeed, then the word ordering is going to be changed to subject, verb, object, which is here, because this one was the Chinese one. Okay, so we can tick off this task as well. And it says, congrats on all your work with Java, inheritance and polymorphism. You have built out some useful classes. So there are more language families you could create. Okay, anyways, this is the end of this project. It was a long one. It was quite tricky, but I think we did quite well. And like I said, you know, there's no problem if every once in a while we have a look at these hints to allow us to complete through our tasks and projects.